Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of The Leader Tree. I'm your host, Chris Miller, and we have a very special show here today talking about breaking the chains that bind you. And I want to talk about that because it is something that is near and dear to my heart. You know, I'm reminded of a story that I once heard about how they train elephants in India. And as babies, you see, these elephants are chained up to these giant trees, right? With these massive chains. So that keeps them from running off into the jungle and escaping to live their lives free from their captors, right? Well, when these baby elephants are young, of course, they're so full of life, right? They're full of wonder, full of excitement, full of curiosity for the world that they're born into, the world that they're going to be a part of. And they want to go and experience it all. They don't want to be held back. They want to be free. So these people chain them up to these massive trees with these massive chains so that they can't break free. And if that in itself isn't sad enough for you, it gets worse. Because, see, as the elephants grow, as strong as they become, and as willful as they are, they just cannot break free of those chains. But this trying and failing, and trying and failing, and trying and failing, over and over again, continually reinforces in their minds that they're stuck there and that they will never be able to break free. So they lose their heart and their passion for life that they once had as babies. They lose their life force, essentially. And something inside their eyes goes a little darker. Worst of all is this, though. With every attempt, they reinforce their own limitations until they lose all hope of ever even trying again. And over the years, the elephant's captors can begin to tie them up to smaller and smaller trees with smaller and smaller chains, and then eventually just ropes. Until finally, they can tie that elephant up with nothing more than a string. A string! And that amazing creature, giant, powerful elephant, which could crush us in a single second, will never break free from that string because it won't believe that it can. And they all eventually die as slaves, never having believed in themselves when the answer was right in front of them. Now for them, those chains were real, but they continually reinforced it in their mind even as those chains went away. They believed it was too difficult to do. Folks, don't be that elephant in the room. Don't let your chains stop you from being all that you can be. Don't ever stop being everything that you are. And when you think you cannot do something, understand that most likely, at least in part, it's a self-imposed limitation that you are reinforcing on yourself. Every time you try something and you fail, do you try it again just as vigorously? Or do you try it again, but with a little more caution? Now, some of us try it again with more force, thinking maybe we just didn't put enough into it. So do those little babies. But over time, if they fail again and they fail again and they fail again, eventually they say, it's not worth it. Eventually say, this isn't for me. Eventually they say, I cannot do this. And they give up on themselves. And it saddens me. It saddens me to believe that any creature that God has made will have to live that way. But it saddens me more to realize that many of us live that way now, with unseen chains, invisible chains that are binding us from reaching our true potential. See, as leaders, we're tasked to see the unseen, aren't we? We are tasked to figure out the answers others can't find without us. But sometimes we still have these hang-ups in our life. We still have these setbacks, and we don't even realize it in our own lives. Just a couple years ago, in 2018, I was working for a company, and I was one of the top 20 people in the entire company. Top 20 revenue earners. Now, I made a lot of money for those people. I worked 6 days a week. 14-hour days. Sometimes more. I barely saw my family. I hardly ever saw my son. But I did it because I was thinking to myself, I'm providing for my family. I'm a hard worker. I'm doing all these things for him. Pardon me. I'm doing all of these things for him, for them, so that we can have a nice life. But here's the reality. That wasn't the case. And it took one Sunday morning for me to realize that. Because like I said, I worked 6 days a week. I only had Sundays off. And here, one Sunday morning, my one day off a week, I get a phone call that wakes me up. And it's my boss. And he says to me, Chris, the vice president of sales has come down and there's a mandatory meeting and you have to be here by 10 a.m. And I said, I can't do that. It's my day off. And I already promised to go fishing with my son. And I'll never forget the words that he said to me. Because remember, I was one of the top earners in this company out of many states. And over the phone, he says to me, well, do what you want to do. But if you don't show up today, don't bother coming in Monday. See, it didn't bother him a minute. Not even a second. Not even a bit. To threaten to fire me if I didn't go in on my day off. Here I am, one of the top guys they got. And I'm a nobody. I'm worthless. I'm just a cog in the wheel. You see, I'm thinking that I'm doing great and I'm sacrificing, I'm doing all these things to provide for my family. But the reality is it can be taken away from me at any point, and I am just a slave. I am just a slave. My chains were invisible, but they were still there. And I had to go to my son and I had to tell him that I couldn't go. I couldn't take him fishing. I had to go into work or I might lose my job. Let me tell you, that broke my heart. And I sat there. I sat there seething all throughout that meeting, thinking about what I was missing because of these people. To sit there in that little room and listen to stuff that didn't have anything to do with me anyway. Didn't affect me anyway. So what I did was this. I went and I told them, I'm taking my life back. I am taking my life back. I am done here. I'm gonna start something else. And I'm gonna give you 30 days notice while I make a plan for something different. You know what they did? They fired me. Okay, fine. Pay me severance if you want to. They fired me. Didn't matter because I was unchained. I broke that chain. And I went out on my own. I became a factoring business broker. And I met the most amazing people. And I've had the most amazing time. And I make a lot more money than I ever did there anyway. You just have to put yourself out there. You just have to keep trying until you get it right. And I made mistakes. I still make mistakes. I made a mistake on a call just last week. Probably cost me 20 grand. Oh well, that's how it happens sometimes. Sometimes you get it right. Sometimes the wrong thing comes out of your mouth at the wrong time. But it's okay. Because it doesn't matter. There'll be another one. The point is I'm making my own way. I'm working for them. I'm working for my clients. I'm working for my family. I'm working for me. I'm working my way. Just last year when this pandemic hit, my day job as a broker, I also took a side gig as a factoring business development officer inside of one of the factoring companies that I worked with. And it was great for me because it gave me the opportunity to learn the insider's perspective of what they do on the other side of that door once I bring a client over. So it was a great opportunity for me. Great opportunity to learn. And that's the way I looked at it. See, that's not the way they viewed it. They viewed it from a whole different perspective. They viewed it as though they owned me. And then they came over to me at one point because the pandemic was going on and they were losing some money. And they said, we're going to have to reduce your salary down. I said, by how much? 20 grand. 20 grand became 30 grand. By the time the year was over. They just called me not too long ago and said, we got to reduce it again. Are you kidding me? So, and they said, well, you got to do this, this, and this in order for us to keep your salary where it is. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do extra. Because you don't own me. You see? It didn't hurt me at all that they took that 30 grand away from me last year. Because I also worked on the side. I also had my own company. I had 2 other companies, in fact. One where I train brokers and one where I am a broker. It didn't hurt me that they took that money away. See, they use that as a form of control. That's what companies do. They chain you up with that promise of a life. They chain you up with that promise of success and future and stability. And then when you step out of line, they rattle that chain to get you back in line. See? Or when things don't go the way they want it to go, they rattle that chain to make you jump. Well, I'm not jumping for anybody. So I told him, I said, you know what? Let's do this. I'm going to help you out. Take me off the payroll. Give me back my commissions. Put me back as a broker. Take me off the payroll. And I solve your problem. You solve my problem. It's a win-win situation. They didn't know how to handle that. Wait, what? Nobody's ever suggested that before. Nobody's ever said to them, I'm not playing your game. Self-imposed limitations. You don't have to have them. Those chains that are binding you, stopping you, preventing you from being every amazing thing that you can be. You can break them away from yourself. Rip them right out of the wall. Grab a blowtorch if you need to. Melt them. I don't care. You need to do it. You are tethered to someone else's future. And let me tell you, folks, in a country where 97% of all businesses eventually fail, do you really want to be tethered to someone else's future? Let's examine that for a second. Why do those businesses fail? Self-limitations most of the time. Tony Robbins literally just said it the other day on a thing I was listening to. He said, I have been traveling all over the world. I have met millions of people, and I have helped them, and I have listened to them, and I have listened to their stories. And he says, good people, business owners, can't get out of their own way. And he said, one thing I have learned, and it's not because I'm some special guru or anything like that, but just because when you listen to that many people, you can't help but see the patterns. And what was his answer? They can't get out of their own way. The number one reason for businesses that fail is the business owner not getting out of his own way and moving forward. And that's from a guy who knows. That's from a guy who has literally gone and talked to the world about that situation. If you don't want to take my word for it, take his. This is your chance. This is your future. This is your past. This is your present. This is your everything. This one life that we have today. What are you going to do with it? Do not let those chains bind you and stop you and create in you a sense that you cannot win. You want to be more successful? Go out and be more successful. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to start. Figure out what it is you want to do and go do it. Don't let somebody tell you whether you can or cannot. People have been telling me I can't do things my whole life. Teachers told me you'll never amount to anything. Well, I proved them wrong. The very first word most of us ever hear is the word no, coming from our own parents. These parents, who are the same ones that tell you you can do anything in life, are constantly telling you don't do this and don't do that. And you can't do things this way. And then they say you can do anything you want. Everywhere you go, people are always telling you something negative. Somebody's always telling you something no. Somebody's always turning you down for something. I was listening to this lady last night. Her name is Jamie. Jamie Lima. Jamie Kern Lima. That's her name. And she just launched a book in a massive way. I mean, you want to look at how to launch a book? This chick did it right. She did it right. I have never seen a book launching party like this in my life. She had some of the greatest speakers of all time assembled to help her launch this book on one stage for 12 hours. We were there all day. And I listened to all of these people, and I watched the reactions of all of these people on Facebook and on Zoom, and everybody turned out to help her launch her book. Everybody turned out to be part of this event that she created out of this book launch. And she said, I'm giving away all of the proceeds to charity. And we're going to raise $2 million in charity today. And she did. $2.2 million. But you know what? She'll get that back in spades. Because of the way that she launched that book. She became a sensation. Hell, he put her on the cover of Success magazine for the way that she's pulled this together. I mean, she was already successful, don't get me wrong. But I'm just talking about this one thing. They put her on the cover of Success magazine for this. She's already a billionaire from her company, which was It Cosmetics, I think it was. But she did it. They put her on the cover not for that. They put her on the cover for this. And she goes on and on about how everybody told her no for 3 years. Everywhere she went, as she started to doubt herself, she started to say, should I be doing this? Am I on the wrong track? Nobody seems to think that this is a good product. Nobody seems to think this is a good thing to do. And she talks to a lot of so-called experts who told her that. And she kept they kept reinforcing it in her that she was on the wrong track and that she was not good enough and that the product was not good enough. But she kept saying to herself, that doesn't make sense to me. So she kept pushing. And she kept pushing, and she kept pushing, and she kept pushing until finally, 3 years later, she gets a yes. And she goes out there and she makes it happen. And she took that one yes and she moved it into another yes. And she moved that into another yes. And so just like those chains can stop you, she started pulling those no's in and turning them into yeses. She grabbed that chain and she just drug it to her. And she turned those no's into yeses. And she grew that business from nothing into something amazing. And then she did the same thing here with this book. She said, I'm going to do this right. And she did this massive virtual event book launch. And I mean massive, folks. There was 214,000 people tuning in to this live event because of the way she put it together. I myself bought 2 copies of this book. One for me and one to give to my mother. These are the chains that stop us. Or are they the chains that we can see and free ourselves from? Don't be the elephant in the room, folks. Because your job as a leader is to see the unseen and to figure out a solution. That's what we're paid to do. That's what we're tasked. And so I want to challenge you right now to do something new. Because I have decided to put this together. And I've decided to put this together because I think it's important. I broke the chains in my life. You can break the chains in yours. And I fully believe that with support, every one of us can live chain-free. So I want you, when you get a chance, to examine yourself and say, do I have these chains in my life? And if you do, go to unchainedchallenged.com and check it out. unchainedchallenge.com. And take the 5-day Unchain Your Income Challenge. It's a free event. It's going to be hosted on Facebook. I'm running it. And for 5 days, we're going to teach you about the chains in your life and how to break them. If that's what you want. If that's not what you're looking for, that's fine with me. But if you've ever had an income problem and you haven't figured out why you can't beat it, we're going to show you at the 5-day Unchain Your Income Challenge. So go to unchainedchallenge.com and sign up for the challenge there. We've got some guest speakers that are going to be showing up that you are going to be amazed at. We've got a program put together that you are going to love. And this is something that is dear to me, that we can help people do this. Folks, my time's about up here, but it has been a lot of fun talking about this subject today. It's a sobering subject, but it's an important one, don't you think? These are the things people don't talk about. These are the things that people just gloss over in their own lives, but then they complain later that say, I can't get ahead, I can't move forward. They don't know that they're chained to a wall the whole time. Of course you can't get ahead. Of course you can't move forward. You're stuck. But you don't have to be that elephant in the room. You don't have to be stuck. You just got to figure out how to identify the chains in your life, and you have to overcome them. You have to beat them. You have to break them. And you can do that. And I want to help you do that. And your friends want to help you do that. So until next time, I'm Chris Miller for the Leader Tree, reminding you to always keep smiling. And if you haven't done so yet, remember to go check out theleadertree.com and sign up for our Facebook group, the Leader Tree Network. We'd love to have you. It's a fun group. You'd enjoy it. Good night.